Morant blows by Primo. Attack!
Jokic in the power. Here it goes. Got it. Denver has won.
But that's my stubborn side. Like, it's easy to go somewhere and go and win a championship with somebody else. It's easy. But this is the hard way to do it, and we did it.
We welcome you in to the Small Ball Podcast alongside Trevor Mikulan and our great producer, Andy, who's behind the scenes. Say hello, producer Andy. I'm Scott Ayers. Oh, Andy, I'm so sorry. I didn't even let you say
Here,
hey.
Andy, say what you want to say.
Say what you want to say.
Hey.
I feel so much better letting him speak. And most importantly, he has returned from the dead. The one, the only, Christian Dennis is back in the house. Christian, what's going on?
Dude, guys, I am back. I had COVID for a little bit.
Yep.
Now Joe Biden has COVID. Coincidence? I don't know. I may have.
Who gave who COVID?
I don't know. But I am back.
How are the COVID chronicles for you? Any stories?
So this is, first time being home alone at this house for the majority of the day. I get a knock on the door, and it's pest control. Greenway Pest Control. And he's like, hey, man, just finished up at your neighbor's house. We'll be coming to your house here pretty soon. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know Katya had something planned for us.
That's our landlord.
Our pest control. So I was like, all right, yeah. And we start talking, and he's like, yeah, these are the bugs your neighbors are seeing. And then he sees our Sacramento Kings flag in the room. He's like, oh, you're a Kings fan? I was like, yeah, I'm a Kings fan. He's like, I'm a Jazz fan. I was like, oh, cool. That's really cool. And I started telling him about Small Ball Podcast, and we just started chatting. Next thing I know, my credit card is in his hand when I paid $300 for us to get our house checked out by Greenway Pest Control.
Thank goodness for that. I've seen a couple crickets the last week, and those won't be here any much longer.
Yeah, so I ended up signing us up for a 12-month plan. But I canceled it the next day. So,
You had a burning $300 hole in your pocket.
Yeah, so the guy who probably saw my account is like, man, this guy signed up for 12 months and canceled after one day. So, yeah.
It's good.
Mission accomplished. Pests have been removed. Christian Dennis has returned from his COVID trials and woes. And we have a full team once again. And we're continuing our tour through the U.S. of A. We were recently in OKC talking about the Thunder.
The Midwest.
The Midwest, my favorite part of the U.S. We were talking about Lou Dort. Now, we're going down south. Whoa, what is that? Howdy, partner. We are in Texas, and the first team we will be covering in this two-show trial that we're running in Texas are the San Antonio Spurs.
Remember the Alamo.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw, and remember the Alamo is right. And we will first kind of cover what the end of last season looked like for the Spurs, kind of the point they're at now, and of course the Spurs sneaking their way into the play-in. And as a small market fan, it was kind of awesome to see because the LA Lakers were plummeting, and the Spurs just kind of climbed their way into the play-in spot. They won the games that they need to win, and more importantly, the Lakers decided to free fall out of that top 10 standing. So the Spurs found themselves into the play-in, but that's really as far as they got. Just didn't have enough firepower to get beyond the play-in mark.
Yeah, they rode the coattails of Desante Murray all year. All-star for the first time last year, had a phenomenal season for the Spurs, and it, led them to the play-in, which was awesome. And they had some, decent pieces. Keldon Johnson, give me some other guys.
Devin Vassell.
Jakob Poeltl. Some guys step up. And so it was a decent season for the Spurs. We'll get into kind of the results of that here soon, but not a ton much to add to that.
Yeah, I don't really know what the Spurs were kind of expecting going into this year. Which I think kind of led to their decisions this offseason of kind of moving on from Desante Murray and just really starting that rebuild now. They got some young guys on their team right now. They have 4 19-year-olds. So they're really committed to this rebuild now. And I think it's the way that they should head, because Desante Murray is great. He was an all-star, fantastic player, but he's not necessarily the cornerstone piece that they should have really kind of built the whole entire franchise around.
Yeah, I agree. And it does get to that point where in the NBA, the goal is to win championships, and you have to see, is DeJounte Murray the number one guy that we can build around to win a championship? And maybe that's going to be the case in a different organization, but I just didn't see it for the Spurs in their current timeline. Making the play-in was great, but they had to have a lot of things fall into their hands for that to happen. And on top of that, we look around the West, and everyone around them is consistently building upon last season. So it just didn't really make sense for San Antonio, because outside DeJounte Murray, really it was Keldon Johnson, who was averaged about 17 points per game. Everyone else, though, averaged under 15 points per game. So it wasn't some high-powered offense with a lot of offensive weapons and talent. So it makes sense to part from DeJounte. So let's actually just go right into this offseason for the Spurs. We mentioned the trade, DeJounte Murray to Atlanta. They get Danilo Gallinari, but more importantly, they get some first-round draft picks in return to look towards the future for the Spurs.
Yeah, who they went on to waive Gallinari. Here's the thing. I've been looking at what the Spurs have been doing for the past couple seasons and just finding myself asking, like, what are they doing? Like, they've been mediocre. Popovich is still the head coach, and they just find themselves playing maybe 8th seed and just in the middle pack of the NBA. And the NBA rewards teams that obviously are at the top, contenders, and bottom tier teams, because they, the benefit of that is getting high picks in the lottery. If you're in the middle, that's like the worst place to be in the NBA. And the Spurs have been there for so long. And so it's been frustrating, I'm sure, for Spurs fans the last couple seasons, just being mediocre. The play-in's awesome. I love it as an NBA fan. But if you find your team there year after year after year, something's got to change. And they did that. They took the step of trading DeJounte Murray, and I think that was a good step. Was that a good enough haul for him? I honestly question that. They got, some draft capital. But for DeJounte Murray, a guy who's 25 years old, who led his team to the play-in alongside, not the best cast, and he in the West too, above the Lakers, as you mentioned. Sure, they're battling health, but DeJounte had such a great season and is a promising player. And I just question if they got enough for him from Atlanta.
Well, and what's interesting, too, in that trade, it's now back-to-back seasons where the Spurs trade their best player. They, in a sign and trade with Chicago, they trade DeMar DeRozan. The following season, it's DeJounte Murray. So you're completely right about kind of this middle ground that the Spurs were in. And, they increased their win total by 1 every single year since 2019-2020 season. They go from 32 to 33 to 34.
Wow.
That's not the growth you want or you need in order to truly succeed in the NBA. So it makes sense to really start to hit that restart button for the Spurs.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of view the Spurs right now as like a tribe or a country who is just getting all these pieces. Like, you got your welder, you got your
Where are you going, bro?
Yeah, no, I got a point. I got a point to this. You got a welder, you got someone that hunts for the tribe, someone who makes clothes. You're just building all these like
the two most important pieces of a tribe: the welder and the clothes maker.
Anyways, but they're just like building a lot of role players together, and they're waiting for their king to come. They're waiting for their number one person to come, and that's the person that could be coming in this draft. But as you guys are deep into the Game of Thrones, is there a country, a tribe? I don't even know what that kind of is similar to the Spurs, where they're just waiting for that king to kind of take them to the next level.
That's you.
Yeah, I would say it really reminds me of Daenerys Targaryen.
What?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mother of dragons.
The mother of dragons. And maybe the Spurs are looking for their mother of dragons. It'd be a father of dragons. But listen, they started with nothing. AKA right now, they don't have anything.
They have nothing.
Yeah, this is actually
They have
really
Keldon.
good.
They have Keldon Johnson.
They have Keldon Johnson, who is
Jeremy Sohan.
Yeah, and those are the guys who make clothes and are welders, but they're hoping to have something more powerful here soon. So I would say Daenerys, because 3 dragons.
Yeah.
Maybe the Spurs, they just need a couple dragons, and next thing you know, they're
That's
on the
beautiful.
Iron Throne.
That right there is an Instagram reel. I'll just say that, Andy.
That's really good.
Okay, before we move on into offseason moves and stuff like that, I do want to talk about Greg Popovich and his status, where he is. He's going to be 74 years old going into next season. And there's players that are 55 years younger than him on his team. And what we've seen successful in the NBA is kind of that older brother, cool uncle coach that comes in and is like a player's coach. Recently, that's been very successful in the NBA. And for Greg, I just don't see, and this is super tough because obviously he's a legend, arguably the greatest coach of all time in the NBA. But here's my take. I think it's time for him to move on. I think that they need to either, one, have that conversation with him, like, hey, this is going to be your farewell tour. And if he agrees to that, awesome. Let's go into the season with that mindset. If he doesn't agree to that, then it gets dirty. It gets a little feisty, and maybe it would suck, but maybe you have to just fire him, because I do not think going into, a couple more years of a rebuild, being in the middle too, he's too good of a coach to do that. San Antonio is not an attractive destination for him as a coach. I just feel like players want to play with guys that they can relate to, and I think Pop's time is done in the NBA.
I mean, I could see where you're coming from there, but with Pop, I feel like, and where the Spurs are at now, is they don't need that coach yet to take them to the level. Like, just, lose with Pop and let Pop just kind of mentor them and give them wisdom. I mean, you have guys on his coaching staff like Tim Duncan, who guys would be, respecting and kind of, learning more about the game of basketball through him as well. And if anything, if they do go that route of not having him be the head coach, maybe look at a different spot in the organization.
Like a front office position.
Yeah, front office position that, is kind of still dealing with the coaching a little bit, just almost in a sense being a mentor for whoever's the next head coach, because he's just so smart. He doesn't have a lot going on outside of basketball to where, he's going to want to leave the game completely. I'm pretty sure he's, is just living with himself right now. I think his wife passed away a couple of years ago. So, I don't know. Keep him in the organization and just let him just kind of put his hand in the mix.
Not to beat a dead horse, but I would say I wouldn't want him around or have any, like you said, mentorship over a head coach, because Pop's the guy where it's his way or the highway. And so if a coach disagrees with him, there's going to be some tension building. I would put him in a front office position. I don't know what that looks like if he's going to stay within the organization.
My thoughts on this, one of the hardest things to have in the NBA is stability at the head coaching position. So many different teams, it feels like it's a coaching carousel year after year after year, or maybe not year after year, but every couple of years. Oh, it's a new coach. Oh, it's a new coach. And you can't have stability in that regard. He's had a couple assistants leave, Becky Hammond, and now Chip England, who I hope I said that last name correctly, just recently went to OKC. Those are two people that were mentioned to maybe move into that head coaching role. You start to lose those assistant coaches. Now it becomes a little bit harder if Pop does kind of leave. And so my thought is maybe he coaches another year or 2 years, and then he's mentioned in the past that he's thought about retiring. That's what I think would make the most sense for San Antonio. I don't think they'd obviously part ways at this point. We're so deep into the offseason now that this would just be too late of a move. But I think that you give him another year, 2 years, before maybe putting any pressure in terms of, hey, you got to leave. Just because, yes, you can find some awesome head coaching guys or guys who are primed to be the next head coach, but you can find a lot of turds as well. And so that's a hard thing in a rebuild. You know what Pop brings. When you bring in a new guy, it's kind of a coin flip in terms of, oh, yeah, he's going to do great, or I'm not so sure. So, but moving from that, let's just talk about the Spurs draft that we saw in the NBA draft. 3 first-round picks, and you mentioned Jeremy Sohan being one of those picks, and hopefully, he can find his way into a starting role early on for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, I think that he's definitely a possibility there at the 4. They really don't have any. I mean, is Doug McDermott going to start for them? So that they have a spot there at the 4 that if he really wants it and if he performs well in training camp, it could be there for him. And so Jeremy Sohan, they drafted Malachi Branham, which we're going to have Andy give his take on that, Blake Wesley. So some interesting prospects. It'll be interesting to see what they do, this next season. Why are you laughing?
I'm just, what role did we give Andy last show?
It was Ty Lawson.
Yeah.
J.R. Smith, the episode
J.R.
before.
Smith, you've always got the green light. Andy, you've got the green light once again. Give us a little lowdown on Malachi Branham. What should Spurs fans expect from him? Whoa.
Everything is going to be great from him. He's going to fit right into the culture. He's going to be walking around the Riverwalk just being like, I'm a local San Antonian. I love it here. He just fits right in. He's gonna do everything Pop tells him to do. He's just going to be that guy.
He's a sponge.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Andy is the sponge of this show.
You are Stephon Marbury this episode. Flashy and gets buckets.
Bucket getter.
Andy feels more like an Aaron Aflalo.
Whoa, disrespect.
What? Aflalo's awesome.
No, he's not.
I mean, compared to Stephon Marbury, he is not.
Yeah, Stephon Marbury's
Stephon Marbury is like Michael Jordan in China.
Yeah.
Like, they have a statue of him. Like, he is a god.
That's what Aflalo is for Denver fans.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
But yeah, well, hopefully he can be that sponge for the Spurs. Yeah.
I don't want to.
Good transition.
Let me just add into the draft talk. I honestly, as a person that likes to keep up with the Spurs, I would have liked to see them tank last year because, like I said earlier, again, this is going to be a theme with them. I'm disappointed in their inability to go either contend, which very few teams do. And when you can't do that as a small market and you have Pop as your head coach and you're not reeling in free agents, you have to tank or at least be bad enough. You don't have to lose on purpose. I know you're a big culture guy, and I know that's coming from you. But you have to be at the bottom of the league to get a high draft pick. I would have loved to see them have a roster that really Popovich could not win with, and for them to have gotten a top 4 pick and have one of those top prospects on their roster this year. But we're sitting here talking about Jeremy Sohan trying to get excited as a Spurs fan for a tanking season. I would have so much rather seen a top 4 guy and for them to tank for Victor Wembanyama. I can't say his name yet. We're going to get there, though. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm happy that they've finally done it, but my goodness, it took too long.
I feel like the Spurs are just a smart organization where they're like, we can tank now or we can tank next year and get this 7'5" guy who could do it all. I feel like the Spurs.
What was the benefit of not tanking last year?
I mean, they got Jeremy Sohan, whatever. All I'm saying is that they went and they tried to capitalize on Desante Murray. They didn't necessarily know exactly what they had. And I think that's what this year was, is they're just play it out. Let's see what happens. Obviously, it wasn't very great. So then they're like, all right, let's move Desante Murray and let's tank for one of the best prospects since LeBron James. So I don't know. That's how I view what the Spurs are doing. Yeah, I was disappointed in what they did last year and the year before. But like, this is like the best time to tank because this upcoming draft class is supposedly going to be one of the best draft class in recent histories.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's going to be a team worse than the Spurs this year, so they are tanking at the right time, but they missed out on an opportunity to tank last season. Just my thought on that. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I completely agree. They should have tanked and drafted Malachi earlier.
Oh, Stephon Marbury.
He is red hot, and that's why producer Andy always
That was fire.
has a green light. So there wasn't a lot of big acquisitions for the Spurs in the offseason. They did get, this was a big acquisition from the University of Nebraska.
Ooh.
Former Husker. Isaiah Roby.
All right, Scott, give us the rundown on Roby.
Isaiah
What can
Roby.
Spurs fans expect?
The bit among Husker fans is when he finds out how good he is, man, he is going to be good. And unfortunately, that's kind of followed him into the NBA. He had a couple games with OKC where it was like, oh my gosh, this guy is really promising, can jump out of the gym, can be really solid on the glass. Hasn't really ever developed a great outside shot, though. So in terms of a tank team, he is the perfect starting center / power forward. Now with Pirtle there, he's not going to start at the center position. But he's a fun athletic big who, as a Husker fan, I'm going to love, and I'm going to cheer for him every single game. So the Spurs picked up a temporary fan by getting Roby.
It's funny that you say he never developed a jump shot. And like the Spurs had the shot doctor in Chip England.
Yeah, they did.
That he went to OKC and they literally switched. So the guy that could save Isaiah Roby's career and give him a jump shot is on the team he used to be on.
He used to play for. He's gone.
So unfortunate.
Yeah, but so that, other than that, there really wasn't any other big things other than Keldon Johnson getting a contract extension. So with the really limited offseason for the Spurs, we move into what can we expect from the Spurs this year. And truthfully, we kind of hinted at it. There's a chance they were going to be the worst team in the NBA this year.
Yeah, we should probably go at it from the perspective of, are there going to be any teams worse than them? Can anyone think of a team? I can't.
Maybe Houston. I think maybe Houston could be worse than them. Other than that, though, which is ironic because our next episode we will be covering the Houston Rockets, so we'll get into that a bit more. It's either San Antonio or Houston, a space race for that number 1 pick. You like that?
I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
I'll use that in the next show as well.
Oh, sick. Yeah, Houston is probably their main competitor for the worst team in the league because I think OKC is going to take a little bit of a jump to where they're not necessarily tanking as badly as they are. But, in terms of the East, I don't see – Orlando was the worst team in the East last year, and they made a huge impact with getting Paolo this year. So, yeah, the Spurs should be the worst team in the NBA, and that should be their goal.
I agree. It's finally happening. They're actually tanking. Spurs fans should be cheering from their Texas homes. For sure.
They should be. Or, there's Spurs fans elsewhere. Maybe it's their Canadian homes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's their Florida homes.
No, but most of them are in the saloon.
Jeez.
What? It's just a Texas.
We're at the rodeo, at the bull riding.
Their team is literally the Spurs. I like the Spurs. I love the dynasty. We have their highlights playing here. But why are you guys saying that's offensive? They don't find offense to it, San Antonio.
Are you
I love
saying
it.
all Texans are alcoholics
Shut your mouth, dude.
because they're just at the saloon?
Hey, can we do like a 10-minute segment on Lonnie Walker leaving?
Yeah, we can talk about Lonnie Walker.
No, I'm playing. We don't need to talk about that.
Okay.
Remember his photo with his draft night with the hair and like his hat didn't fit?
Are we cutting this
Please
part?
remember. No.
Okay.
No. Andy, please remember. Can you put the photo of Lonnie Walker with his hat halfway? You know what I'm talking about, draft night? Yeah, that's going to be right here. And you can wrap up the show.
Okay. And really briefly, here's what kind of is returning to the Spurs for next season. Keldon Johnson, he's the leading scorer of all guys that are still on the roster. 17 points per game. Jakob Poeltl at 13.5, and Devin Vassell 12.3. Other than that, Doug McDermott's going to be your number 4 guy from last year.
No, yeah, they have a spot. They have a spot in the plan.
Under Pop, anything's possible.
Anything's possible. well, for producer Andy, our good friend Trevor Mikulin, who is in the saloon, and of course Christian Dennis, I'm Scott Ayers. So we say so long for now, and we will see you next episode.
Jeremy Saw.
I didn't know what to do. Hey, great job. You made it to the end of the video. We thank you so much for watching us here on the Small Ball Podcast. We're the only channel covering small to mid-market teams. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Find us on Instagram at Small Ball Podcast. Thanks so much, guys.